What if loving a man costs you everything you fought for? The roar of the Staples Center crowd still echoed in Grayson Thompson's ears as he stood at center court, microphone in hand, sweat beading on his forehead under the blinding arena lights. It was June 2024, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and the Los Angeles Lakers had just clinched the title in a miracle comeback. Confetti rained down like celebratory snow, players hugged in triumph, and millions watched live across America. Grayson, the league's most trusted voice at 34, had called every play with his signature calm intensity. But now, as the cameras zoomed in for the post-game interview, his eyes locked on one face in the front row of the family section. Anthony Rivera, 29, the quiet high school history teacher from Pasadena who had shared Grayson's bed and secrets for 3 years. Anthony smiled that small, knowing smile, the one that said, "We made it through another night of pretending." Grayson's heart hammered harder than during any broadcast. He had promised himself this would be just another game, another night of hiding. But when the Lakers star forward handed him the trophy for the ceremonial interview, and the crowd chanted his name, something cracked inside. Grayson stepped off the platform, ignored the producer's frantic earpiece commands, and walked straight to Anthony. Without a word, he pulled him into a tight embrace, the kind that lingered too long for just friends. Anthony stiffened at first, then melted into it, arms wrapping around Grayson's back as the arena lights caught the moment in perfect clarity. The hug lasted 8 seconds. 8 seconds that shattered everything. By the next morning, the clip had racked up over 50 million views. Sports MC hugs boyfriend after finals. View count breaks record, the headline screamed. Social media exploded. Some celebrated it as a historic coming out. Others called for boycotts. Grayson's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. His agent texted in all caps, "Call me now." His mother left a voicemail that ended in tears. And Anthony, sitting beside him on their hidden couch in the quiet Pasadena bungalow they had bought under a shell company, looked at him with eyes full of fear and love. "Grayson, what have we done?" Grayson Thompson had built his life on control. From a working-class family in Chicago, he had clawed his way to the top of sports broadcasting through relentless preparation and a voice that could cut through any crowd. At 6'2", with sharp jawline and kind hazel eyes that made viewers trust him instantly, he was the golden boy of the NBA. No one knew the real Grayson, the one who had realized at 16 that the girls his teammates chased left him cold, that the boy next door in his high school made his pulse race instead. He buried it deep. College in California, internships, then the big break with the Lakers. Success demanded silence. Anthony Rivera entered his life at a charity event 3 years earlier. Anthony taught U.S. history at a public high school in Pasadena, coached the debate team, and volunteered at the local LGBTQ youth center on weekends. Shorter than Grayson at 5'9", with warm brown eyes, dark curls, and a gentle laugh that could disarm anyone, Anthony carried his own scars. Growing up in a traditional Mexican-American family in East LA, he had come out to his parents at 22 only after a suicide attempt in college. They accepted him eventually, but the road had been rocky with church guilt and neighborhood whispers. When Grayson first spoke to him at that fundraiser, something about the importance of role models in sports, Anthony felt seen in a way no one else had managed. Their first date was cautious, coffee in a back booth at a West Hollywood cafe far from prying eyes. Grayson insisted on separate cars. Anthony understood. By month 6, they were inseparable in private. Weekend hikes in the San Gabriels where no one recognized the announcer, late-night talks on the patio about dreams and fears. Grayson taught Anthony the rhythm of NBA schedules. Anthony taught Grayson how to breathe without the weight of the closet. They never said, "I love you" in public. They never held hands on the street. But in the safety of their bungalow, with the blinds drawn, Grayson would rest his head on Anthony's chest and whisper the words that kept him alive. The night of the finals changed the rules. Back in the bungalow the morning after the hug, Grayson paced the living room while Anthony made coffee in silence. "I didn't plan it," Grayson said, voice cracking. "It just happened. I saw you there after everything we've been through, and I couldn't pretend anymore." Anthony set the mugs down and took Grayson's hands. "I know, but now the whole country knows. Your sponsors, the league, your family, they're all watching. Grayson's phone lit up again. A text from his younger brother, Marcus, who still lived in Chicago. Dude, is this real? Mom's losing it. Grayson closed his eyes. The internal storm he had quieted for years roared back louder than any arena crowd. By afternoon, the bungalow was under siege. Paparazzi camped at the end of the quiet street. Grayson's agent, Carla, arrived with a stack of crisis PR plans. "We can spin this as a supportive hug for a friend," she said, but Grayson shook his head. "No more lies, Carla. Not after this." Anthony sat on the couch, scrolling through comments, half supportive, half vicious. "They're calling you a disgrace to the game," he said softly. Grayson knelt in front of him. "I don't care what they call me. I care about us. But I need to know if you're ready for what comes next." Anthony's eyes filled with tears. "I've been ready since the day I fell in love with you. The question is, are you?" That evening, Grayson posted a simple Instagram story, a photo of their intertwined hands with the caption, "Truth feels lighter than secrets ever did." The likes poured in faster than any highlight reel. But so did the death threats. As night fell over Pasadena, Grayson realized the hug had not just exposed their love, it had forced every hidden fracture in their lives into the light. And the first crack was already spreading toward the people who mattered most. The backlash hit like a fast break. By Monday, 3 major sponsors had pulled their contracts from Grayson's network. The NBA issued a neutral statement about personal lives, but insiders whispered that league executives were furious. Grayson's co-host on the pregame show, a former player named Derek, texted, "Bro, you could have warned me. The guys in the locker room are freaking out." Grayson stared at the message until the screen went black. Anthony tried to keep things normal, grading papers at the kitchen table while Grayson fielded calls. But normal was gone. Grayson's mother, Diane, flew in from Chicago on Tuesday. She had raised 3 boys alone after their father left, working double shifts at the steel mill. Conservative, church-going, proud of her son the star announcer, she had never suspected. When she walked into the bungalow and saw Anthony making lunch, her face crumpled. "Grayson Michael Thompson, what is this?" she demanded. Grayson stood tall. "This is Anthony, the man I love." "Mom, I'm gay." Diane sat down hard on the couch, clutching her purse like a shield. "All these years the girlfriends you brought home for holidays were fake." Grayson nodded. Anthony quietly excused himself to the backyard, giving them space. Diane's voice rose. "I prayed for you every night. Thought you'd settle down with a nice girl, give me grandkids. Now this." The whole world laughing at our family. Grayson felt the old shame rise, but he pushed it down. "I'm not laughing, Mom. And neither is Anthony. We're real." She left that night without hugging him, promising to pray on it. Anthony's family reacted differently. His parents, Rosa and Miguel, drove up from East LA the next day with homemade tamales and cautious smiles. Rosa hugged Anthony first, then turned to Grayson. "Mijo, we've known since he brought you to Christmas 2 years ago, and you two couldn't stop looking at each other. We just waited for you to be ready." Miguel shook Grayson's hand firmly. "Just treat our boy right. The world is cruel enough." For the first time in days, Grayson felt a flicker of hope. But the contrast stung. His own mother's rejection versus Anthony's acceptance only deepened the guilt he carried. At work, the network placed Grayson on personal leave. He spent the days in the bungalow trying to write a statement, while Anthony returned to teaching. Students whispered in the hallways. One parent complained to the principal. Anthony came home exhausted. "A kid asked me today if I'm the guy from the video. I said yes. Then another kid said his dad told him not to talk to me." Grayson pulled him close. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this spotlight." Anthony shook his head. "You didn't drag me. I chose you. But I need you to choose us now, every day, even when it hurts." That weekend, an old college friend of Grayson's, someone who had suspected years ago, sold a story to a tabloid claiming he had seen them together at a private party. The betrayal cut deep. Grayson sat on the patio staring at the hills, replaying every moment he had chosen silence. Anthony joined him with 2 beers. "You're not alone in this anymore," he said. "But if you want out, if the cost is too high, I'll understand." Grayson turned, eyes fierce. "The only thing too high is the price of another lie. I'm done paying it." Flashbacks hit Grayson in waves during those quiet evenings. He remembered the night they met properly, not just the fundraiser handshake. It was 6 months later at a small dinner party in Silver Lake. Anthony had cooked enchiladas from his abuela's recipe. Grayson arrived late, still in his broadcast suit, and Anthony greeted him with a quiet, "You look like you need to breathe." They talked until 3 a.m. About everything: Grayson's fear of losing his career, Anthony's work with gay teens who reminded him of his younger self. When Grayson finally kissed him on the front steps under the porch light, it felt like coming home after a lifetime on the road. Their relationship deepened in hidden pockets of time. Road trips to Yosemite where they hiked hand in hand on empty trails. Quiet Christmases in the bungalow with just the two of them and a small tree. Grayson taught Anthony the intricacies of pick-and-roll defenses. Anthony read aloud from history books about queer figures who had changed the world in silence. There were fights too, moments when Anthony felt like a secret mistress, when Grayson canceled plans because a sponsored dinner came up. "I'm tired of being your shadow," Anthony had said once after a missed anniversary. Grayson had apologized with tears, promising change. But change had waited until that 8-second hug. Now, with the world watching, those memories fueled Grayson's resolve. He started therapy, virtual sessions with a counselor who specialized in athletes and identity. Anthony joined sometimes. They talked about the internal war Grayson had waged since adolescence, the nights he prayed to be normal, the fake dates with women to keep up appearances. Anthony shared his own crisis, the hospital stay after his attempt, the letter he wrote to his future self promising he would never hide again. "We both survived the hiding," the counselor said. "Now you get to survive the truth." Family pressure mounted. Marcus, Grayson's brother, called from Chicago drunk one night. "Mom cries every day. The church group is praying for your soul. I defended you at first, but dude, the guys at my bar are calling you a traitor to sports." Grayson hung up feeling gut-punched. Anthony held him through the night. "Your brother will come around. Or he won't. But you don't owe anyone your happiness." The next morning, Grayson wrote a long email to his entire family. Honest, vulnerable, detailing years of fear and the joy Anthony brought. He hit send and felt lighter than he had in decades. Meanwhile, unexpected support arrived. Former players Grayson had interviewed over the years began posting messages of solidarity. One star center tweeted, "Love is love. Grayson called my games fair. Now I'm calling this one for him." The network noticed. Carla called with cautious optimism. "The tide is turning. Sponsors are reconsidering if we frame this right." But Grayson refused the spin. No framing. Just truth. The lowest point came in mid-July. A conservative sports network ran a segment questioning whether Grayson could remain objective covering men's sports. Death threats escalated, emails with graphic details, one even showing up at Anthony's school in an anonymous letter. Anthony's principal suggested a leave of absence for safety. Anthony refused. "Those kids need to see someone like me standing tall." But the strain showed. One night Grayson found him crying in the shower, whispering, "Maybe I'm ruining your life." Grayson made a decision. He called a press conference at the league offices, his first public statement since the hug. Dressed simply in a button-down, Anthony standing just off-camera for support, Grayson looked straight into the lenses. "I'm gay. Anthony is my partner." The hug wasn't a mistake. It was the most honest moment of my career. I won't apologize for loving him. If that costs me my seat at the table, so be it. But I hope the league chooses growth over fear. The room fell silent. Cameras flashed. Anthony stepped forward afterward and simply said, "We're just two guys who love each other. That's all." The response was mixed but powerful. Ratings for Grayson's old show dipped, then surged with new viewers. A petition to reinstate him gathered 2 million signatures. Yet inside, the couple faced their deepest test. Anthony's old insecurities resurfaced. "I'm the reason your family is broken," he said during an argument. Grayson countered, "You're the reason I'm finally whole." They spent a week apart, Anthony at his parents', Grayson alone in the bungalow, processing. When Anthony returned, he carried a small box. Inside was a simple silver ring. Not a proposal yet, just a promise that whatever comes, we face it together. Betrayal struck again when Derek, the co-host, gave a paid interview claiming he had always suspected and felt uncomfortable in the booth. Grayson felt the knife twist. But instead of rage, he felt pity. He reached out to Derek privately. "I never asked you to carry my secret. I'm sorry you felt caught in the middle." Derek never replied, but the gesture freed something in Grayson. He realized forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was strength Anthony had taught him. By August, the storm began to settle into a new normal. The network offered Grayson a special series, Beyond the Game, focusing on athletes' personal stories, including mental health and identity. He accepted on one condition: Anthony would co-produce segments on youth education. Their first joint trip was to Chicago. Diane met them at the airport, eyes red but arms open. "I've been talking to my pastor. He reminded me love is love. I still don't understand everything, but I miss my son." She hugged Anthony too, awkward but genuine. Marcus showed up later with beers and a gruff "sorry man." "Took me a minute." The family dinner was tense at first, then filled with cautious laughter. Grayson watched Anthony charm his nephews with basketball stories and felt the last piece of his old life click into place. They traveled to New York for Anthony's cousin's wedding, where Grayson stood in the open as his partner. No hiding, no excuses. Strangers recognized them, some asked for photos, others offered quiet support. One teenage boy approached Anthony in Central Park. "I saw your video. I'm scared to tell my dad. But seeing you two, maybe I can." Anthony gave him the youth center number and a hug. Grayson watched from a distance, chest swelling with pride. This was the impact he never knew broadcasting could have. Internal work continued. Grayson journaled daily, tracing his growth from the scared teen in Chicago to the man who chose love over legacy. Anthony started a support group at school for LGBTQ students. Their evenings shifted from fear to planning, dreams of adopting someday, of traveling openly, of Grayson maybe writing a book. The sacrifices had been real: lost contracts, strained family ties, public scrutiny. But the awakening was deeper. Grayson understood now that his voice had never been just for calling games. It was for calling out truth. October brought the NBA season opener. Grayson sat in the booth again, this time with a new co-host and a league blessing. Anthony watched from the family section, ring now on his finger, not an engagement yet, but a symbol of forever. When the Lakers won their first game, Grayson called the final play with the same passion, then glanced toward Anthony in the stands. This time the camera caught a small wave between them. No hug, but the connection was undeniable. The crowd cheered louder than ever. In the tunnel afterward, Grayson pulled Anthony aside. "Remember that question I asked myself the night of the finals?" Anthony smiled. "What if loving a man costs everything?" Grayson shook his head. "Turns out it didn't cost me anything real. It gave me everything that matters." They walked out together into the Los Angeles night, hands brushing openly under the city lights. The journey wasn't over. Prejudice still lingered in comments and quiet stares, but they had chosen each other through every storm. Grayson's voice, once silenced by fear, now carried a new resonance. And Anthony's quiet strength had become the anchor that held them both steady. Years later, when young broadcasters asked how he survived the spotlight, Grayson would simply say, "I stopped hiding." And the world, slowly, learned to see. In reflecting on Grayson and Anthony's journey, the story reveals that authenticity demands courage but rewards it with freedom no secret can match. Their path shows how one honest moment can ripple outward, healing old wounds and inspiring others even amid backlash. The real victory wasn't the viral views or the career rebound. It was two men learning that love, when rooted in truth, outlasts every external storm. We see that identity crises and family rifts test us, but choosing connection over conformity ultimately builds deeper bonds and a life worth broadcasting to the world.